This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Fun show today. NFL season over, so naturally it's going to be all LeBron from here on out with a taste of the Warriors. I don't know, are we going to do any NHL on this show? Colin says hockey, hockey. It's Gretzky, basketball, Jordan, baseball, Ruth, and now football, Tom Brady. Whitlock gets personal and shares a story with us about his own Hall of Fame invitation from Ball State. Strap in for this one, folks. Chris Carter, a Hall of Famer, breaks down the Pro Football Hall of Fame's decision to leave Terrell Owens off the list again. It's so preposterous and silly, the idea that he's not a Hall of Famer, it just turns me off to the whole topic, and I feel like the Hall of Fame is devalued. This is a guy who was dominant in the league for 10 to 15 years, and he's not in the Hall of Fame because he wasn't nice to the media? Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard talks LeBron and the Cavs, and the guys debate if it's a good look for the Patriots to keep taking shots at Roger Goodell. Ready for Speak For Yourself? Cowherd and Whitlock, take it away.
Welcome to the show. Colin thinks there's a new face of football. You've probably heard of it.
And Jason thinks LeBron is capable of saving Carmelo Anthony's career. You really think that? Speak For Yourself starts now. I'm probably going to have to fight off you and Broussard for this. Jeez.
That's what they call him, Captain Saver Carmelo. Hello and welcome. Happy Tuesday. Joining the panel today are Hall of Famer Chris Carter and Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard. Let's start with the king. That's LeBron James, who was incredible last night, dropping 32 points and a career-high 17 assists, snapping the Wizards' 17-game home winning streak. The Cavs got the win, but Washington gave Cleveland a battle, and it took a crazy bank shot three from LeBron to send the game to overtime. Surprisingly, the Wizards aren't the only team that could be a threat in the East, where Toronto, Indiana, Boston also look pretty legit. Colin, are the Cavaliers a lock for the NBA Finals?
Yeah. I mean, basketball is the only sport of all of them you can flip a switch. I've seen it my entire life. It doesn't matter if you're at the YMCA and you're just kind of dogging it, and then all of a sudden the team comes up that's got two former Division I players. You're like, all right, now we balling. Now we're locking up. In baseball, I can try harder. I can't hit your curve. In football, I can try harder. Quarterback doesn't have protection. In basketball, I can go, flip it, and because basketball is so much about effort. It's such an effort sport. I think they'll flip a switch, drive through the East.
Well, listen, what you don't want to do is what the Cavs are doing. They're spreading hope right now. By their struggles and other teams starting to play well, Indiana's starting to figure things out. Washington certainly has. Your man John Wall having a career year. Listen, they're spreading hope. And so that trading deadline is 17 days away. One of these teams may catch some hope and say, you know what, we should go out and maybe acquire a player. Maybe the Cavaliers are vulnerable. I think they are a bit vulnerable, the Cavaliers. I think, as it relates to this Carmelo situation with the New York Knicks, I think Phil Jackson is trolling LeBron James. I think Frank Izola's report is legitimate. I think it comes...
You think it's true?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think Phil Jackson told him that, and Frank has a reason to believe it, and he's stirring discontent and chemistry problems in Cleveland with the mellow Kevin Love.
The Cavs thrive on discontent.
Yeah.
You know, notice
really?
Notice what they've gone on a winning streak since LeBron started talking, right?
Yes.
And yesterday's game, that was Washington's first home loss in 18 games.
Right.
So they had won 17 straight. So even though it was a
Lucky
close
bank
game,
shot.
whatever. I mean,
Great shot.
Cleveland still beat them at home.
Great.
Hope only goes so far. I can hope I could beat Chris Carter in a 40-yard dash all I want. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. And these teams, you mentioned a trade in the trade deadline, that's what they need to do to have any chance to beat Cleveland. Only way Cleveland doesn't get out of the East is if LeBron gets hurt. That's it.
Also, the shot last night wasn't a lucky shot because when you turn over your left shoulder, and you're that far away from the bucket, you have a better angle banking it in than you try to make a swish.
Thank you.
You know,
lucky shot.
and it's about 3.
It's still kind of lucky.
But wait a second. But it's about 3 feet 2 away from LeBron's, from his sweet spot as far as what he prefers. He prefers the long diagonal.
You're distracted, Chris.
No, I'm not.
Distracted you with
No.
luck.
The long diagonal three-pointer, so it wasn't luck.
Are the Cavs a lock, brother?
No, they're not a lock because if you look at the last 2 years in the playoffs, look what happened to Steph, all right? He got nicked early in the playoff. If they get any one of their 3 stars nicked, they're going to have problems coming down the stretch. 2 years ago, we know what they had. They had a couple injuries. So they're one injury away from being...
So you think if Love or Kyrie gets hurt, they can't win the East?
They're not no lock. The question was, were they a lock? You got to... They posed the question.
I mean... Washington is a nice little team.
Are we forgetting?
Boston is a nice little team.
Are we forgetting how good Cleveland was last year? By the way, Kevin Love at the end was kind of a mess last year. He had a good game 7.
A mess.
He was a mess. Kevin Love's playing great. 20 and 11, hitting threes, rebounding up. Tristan Thompson was incredibly important in a couple of big games in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals. Steph was outplayed by Kyrie.
You sound like David Griffin. You don't sound anything like LeBron because LeBron James says they need a player.
Well,
you sound like that.
He's saying a backup player. He's not talking about to get out of the East. He's saying to beat Golden State.
They were suffocating Golden State last year at the end of that series. They won twice there. And for the record, because we've all marginalized LeBron to, if you win finals, you're a bum, I would argue, you know how everybody's tired of the NFL preseason? To some degree, the regular season for LeBron is his NFL preseason. He's getting to the playoffs. Why expend all the energy?
Love LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, certainly the greatest player right now. But he can also get nicked mentally. We've seen, it's part of his DNA. We've seen him have problems in Cleveland, in Miami. If things emotionally get unstable for a team, it can linger with him. And again, my deal was, you spread enough hope, someone may make a move before the trading deadline, and you got a problem.
All right, after the game, things got interesting as LeBron had to answer questions about a report from the New York Daily News that he was trying to engineer a trade for Carmelo Anthony, even if it meant sending Kevin Love to the Knicks. Here's LeBron's response to Frank Isola's report in the New York Daily News.
There was a report in the New York Post today. You're probably familiar with it.
I heard about it. It's trash. And the guy who wrote it is trash, too, for writing that, especially during a game like that. So, you know, it's always about outside noise, and that's just outside noise. For us, we got to focus on what needs to be done in order for us to continue to compete for a championship, and we got who we got.
A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put his pants on. If Bron has had any problem with me, I mean, it's just not true. It's almost laughable. I'm on this team. I'm going to be on this team, and we want to win with the guys that we have.
Yeah, we're gonna trade him tonight. Yeah, 39 and 12. We're gonna trade him right now. Yeah, come on, man.
All right, trash or not, do you think, is it possible LeBron could get the best out of Carmelo?
Yeah, so I agree with LeBron about, you know, it's trash, and I don't believe Frank Isola is trash. I do believe their denial that LeBron doesn't want to move Kevin Love for Carmelo Anthony. However, do I think LeBron James would like to have Carmelo Anthony on this team? Feels like that would put them on footing with the Golden State Warriors. Yes, he does. And I think...
For Kevin Love?
No, not for Kevin Love. Just
keep Love, yeah.
Keep Love. Just add Carmelo. Again, we've had LeBron make a statement that I thought was ridiculous last week, that he just wants Carmelo to be happy. Did you say that about Reggie White or anybody you played against? I just want them to be happy. This blows my mind. So I do think, though, the question is, could he get the best out of Carmelo Anthony? I do. Carmelo Anthony would be backed up against the wall. LeBron is good with teammates, brings out the best in teammates. If Carmelo landed in Cleveland, it would work out, I think.
I'm just going to say something loony. Right now, Kevin Love's a better player than Carmelo with Cleveland because he's a better three-point shooter.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know what LeBron's got the ball in his hands. He's going to get me the ball. So he's a better three-point shooter than Carmelo. I don't like either defense. But you know the other thing that Kevin Love would do? If LeBron came up to Kevin Love and said, I need 14 boards tonight. Don't worry about your offense. Kevin Love would say, all right, tonight I can do that.
I think Carmelo would too in that situation.
I have to ask myself, who can guard Kevin Durant better? Like over the course of a 7-game series, like when you have to switch off, there are a lot of switch offs. And that's what Golden State, they present a number of problems for you. In this situation, it's not like either one of them have an advantage. You know, so I'm worried about the selfishness of Carmelo. How do you become a different player all of a sudden? When you've been the go-to guy, you've pretty much had the LeBron demands on the roster for both teams you've been on. How do you relinquish that to your brother in LeBron? Now, I know LeBron is consumed with playing with his friends. I know that. Played with Wade. He would love to play with Chris Paul or Melo. But those things aren't going to happen, Chris.
Well, look, I think Melo would play well in Cleveland. When we look at him in the Olympics, when all he has to do is score and he's the third best player on the court on his team, he's great. Okay, but I don't think they would be
wasn't playing
better
against Golden State.
Well, no, I think Melo would thrive there and play well. I just don't think they'd be any better than they are with Love. Like, I would keep Love because, as you said, he rebounds, he stretches the floor a lot better. You bring in Melo, then if you're Cleveland, you're playing differently. Now you're not just putting everybody around the three-point line and letting LeBron and Kyrie penetrate. Now you have to have a different system, which, given an off-season, a training camp, yeah, maybe then it goes well. But not in the middle of the season and you're going to beat Golden State. No.
I love Kevin Love, too, how they start the game. They always go into him. He's one of the leading scorers in the first quarter. Now with Melo, if you start that way, I mean, Melo's like, give it to me the second quarter, give it to me the third quarter. I mean, he's the black hole.
It's a tough adjustment from the first option to the third.
I got to push back, and I love Chris, but this whole Melo's good in the Olympics against Latvia, okay? It's a big difference. All the Olympics are summer camp. Everybody gets along at summer camp.
Fantasy camp.
It's the only time in my life I kayaked. Oh, I love to kayak. And I slept in a tent. I loved it. Everybody at summer camp gets along because the girls are cute and the parents aren't there and the rules change. Now you got to go on the road. Now you lose. Now the American media is on you. You're on a 3-game losing streak. Melo's never proven against people except Tunisia that he can do it on a nightly basis.
Backed into a corner, though, I think with LeBron there to walk him through the process, I do think LeBron could get him through.
And at this point in his career, 14th season, that's really what he is. He may not know it,
yeah, that's the
but
problem.
He's a third option on a championship-type team.
Did you see the exchange between LeBron and Kevin Love last night during the game, where they were making adjustments, and LeBron was talking to him, and it was very aggressive, like in-the-game type talking. I don't see, if you move Kevin Love, I don't see Melo sitting there with that same conversation, and I don't believe they have the same basketball IQ.
It would be a different conversation. Are you happy, Carmelo?
Oh, God.
Are you happy? I want you to be happy.
Dr. Phil.
Let's win a championship together, Carmelo.
All right, welcome back. Hall of Famer Chris Carter here, joining the panel now. Super Bowl champ Eric Davis. Let's move to Boston. Man, what a city and what championships. You look at their allure. Super Bowl champion Patriots welcomed by fans at their victory parade today. The 5th parade during Tom Brady's tenure in New England, and I think the historic nature of Sunday's win has made Tom Brady the all-time face of football. Jason, agree?
I think you're right that we're moving that direction. I'm not ready to go there right now. When I think of football, and maybe a year from now I'll be someplace else, I still think of Walter Payton. I still think of Dick Butkus. Again, the Patriots versus the Chicago Bears and some of the long historic franchises of the NFL. I think of Jim Brown and the Cleveland Browns. And so I think we're headed that direction, but for me right now, it's still Walter Payton, it's still Dick Butkus.
The NFL has done, this is really a good business move by the NFL, is that of all the leagues, of every sport in the world, I can say a sport and I think of one person. Baseball, Babe Ruth, soccer, Pele, basketball, Jordan. I mean, all of them. The only exception in my life has been the NFL, because it's all about the shield. You can cut players.
You're absolutely right.
But I will tell you, I think Jim Brown had that mantle for a while. You thought football, you thought Jim Brown. I think it moved kind of to Lombardi. I think briefly it was Namath. For some reason as a kid, I always see Tom Landry's hat in the Dallas Cowboys.
It's a great one.
And then it's just kind of been back to the shield. For the first time for me in a long time, Brady feels like, Gretzky hockey, Ali boxing, Pro football in America is the last one that you don't have this convergence of guy and sport. Maybe it's just an hour. Maybe I don't think this September. But I do think now Brady football.
Last little thing I'll add to your point. Roger Staubach and Tom Landry were a package deal.
Yes.
And you're right, the way Belichick and Brady.
Because as a kid, they were the face to me.
Yeah, I just think the brand, and given when the league expanded, the overall ability of the franchises and the net worth of the franchises and the overall function of the league, and being a player and now covering the league the last 30 years, there's no player that has stood out more than the Shield. And I think that it's also been ingrained in us as players that the league was bigger than all the players compared to the other leagues where they allowed these players to ascend. In the NFL, they haven't done that. Now, I think that Bill Walsh and San Francisco and Joe Montana, for a while, they were the image of the league. Not only how they were doing things from an ownership standpoint, Bill Walsh, how he was coaching, scouting, the way they ran their offense, and the type of players that they had. But we've moved on from that. So for me, it's still the image of the league compared to one player. Now, Brady says he's going to play 3 or 4 more years. Now, he could be that. At the end of that, if you say, for instance, if he has 6 rings, a couple more Super Bowl appearances, I think it could be that way. But I think the overall branding, Eric, didn't lead to one person being the image.
You and I came up through pretty much the same era, and I agree with what you're saying. It was all about the image. It was all about the Shield, is what you were saying. But it is moving towards Tom Brady, and I'll tell you why. When you mentioned Jim Brown, any old head player, he comes in the room, you're going to stand up and call him Mr. Brown until he says you can call him JB. That's how we are. That's the respect we have from him. You can talk about Ditka and all these guys, but millennials haven't seen these guys play. And we grew up in an era, it didn't matter how good you were, even with Jerry Rice and Joe Montana and Bill Walsh, it was always the 49ers versus the Giants. It was the Cowboys versus the Eagles. Now, if you see the Washington playing the Giants, it is Odell Beckham versus Josh Norman. You're now starting to promote the players. You don't even have to be on a good team. Once upon a time, you had to be on a good team to get mentioned. You can be a good player on a bad team, and like Odell. Nationally, internationally, many people know, I think more people might know Odell Beckham.
Right.
With his 10 million followers on social media, they know him. This is a guy they sent over to London, right, to get the crowds going, and the soccer players all wanted to know.
Yes, he played in 1 playoff game in 3 years.
Exactly, but Brady is I think he's becoming that face because you had that transition like with Peyton Manning. Wasn't a big market team, but they started to promote Peyton Manning, and I think people started to know him. Once upon a time, more people knew John Madden from the Madden football game. He was the face of football with these millennials.
You know what, actually, that's interesting.
That's a good one, too.
It's a really good point. I could say Madden for about 10 years with his game, and he was the lead broadcaster.
Yeah.
Right. I think the retirement of Peyton Manning, it helps because Brady was kind of in the shadow of Peyton Manning for a long time. Now he's superseded him and as far as what people think.
I think Peyton was the guy, the league, if they were pushing anybody to be the face, and he couldn't deliver in the playoffs to get it done. And now Brady is going to be that guy.
Yeah.
All right, to a guy NFL fans and voters are divided on, Terrell Owens. For a second year in a row, T.O. was not voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Owens' stats are incredible, but his reputation as a divisive force in locker rooms appears to be keeping him out of Canton. Colin, did the Hall of Fame voters get it right?
Not to me, and I think what's happening, the Hall of Fame has an agenda crisis. This is the same thing the American media has, is that for my life, the columnist, I always trusted my local columnist. He was a voice of reason. I didn't have to always agree.
I was.
You were. Okay, and something has happened now is newspapers don't have the formidable, the gravitas they used to. So what is happening to our media on the political side? Like, people don't trust the media. Well, these Hall of Fames now, you got the Kurt Schilling issue, got the T.O. issue. I find that Hall of Fames now are dealing with the same thing the American media is. They have an agenda issue. People don't trust Hall of Fame voters. And by the NFL going out and not voting Terrell in, whether it's the right move or not, it sends a message. It's personal. The media's vindictive.
I'm not vindictive. I didn't vote on this. But if I were in that room, I would be patting these guys on the back because Terrell Owens' misbehavior on the field with his teammates destroyed teams. He was not always about winning. And I get the whole numbers thing, but I think you're wrong.
Right now.
And in terms of agenda, they're making it too easy, in my opinion. 7 guys got in this year. And I can name a couple of them. I'm like, hey, man, Jason Taylor, and I no offense to Joy, but first ballot? They made Charles Haley wait for a decade?
That's the problem. That's the problem. Charles never should have had to wait. He never should have had to wait. He shouldn't have been a finalist for 6 times.
Mike Strahan had to wait a year.
Okay.
With 2 Super Bowls.
I'm sitting across from a guy who he had 130 touchdowns. Why? You look at where his numbers are.
Yeah, I was number 2 in touchdowns,
yes,
number 2 in catches.
Why should he have to wait? So that's just because these
Chris
other
Carter
guys
didn't tear up a bunch of teams.
But hold on.
But I still had to wait.
But you never should have had to. So you having to wait, and because you had to wait doesn't make the process correct. And just because, and I always hear about T.O. I never played with T.O. Played against him. Everyone always talks about how divisive he was. If he was so divisive, why did quarterbacks continue to throw him the ball?
Because he was open.
Wait, hold on. If he was such a horrible guy, and you didn't want him to be around, why were coordinators making game plans that were heavy T.O.?
Because he could get open.
He won 54% of his games. That's how many Bill Parcells won.
So this
didn't submarine his teams totally.
The guy has the numbers, and this right here, it's a power grab. That's what this is.
Okay.
Here we go. Now, I talked to a few of the Hall of Fame voters, all right? I was very busy last week. But more importantly, what changed my perspective was that guy right there. Because he talked about the attitude inside the locker room and the culture of a team. Now, the Hall of Fame, I give them credit. 2 years ago, when Darren Sharper ended up on the list, there were shockwaves sent through the Hall of Fame to, wow, this guy can potentially be in the Hall of Fame. That wouldn't be right. At the time, he was accused of raping 5 or 6 women, all right? He has since been, all right, indicted and gonna serve 25 to 30 years in prison. So at that point, Dave Baker went to the voters and said, you know something? Character, a lot like baseball, we're not going to put it in the bylaws, but the locker room, it has something to do with on the field.
Understood.
So the locker room, and he had prominent coaches and prominent players who asked the Hall of Famers what they thought of T.O. And there was a great deal of dislike, and one prominent coach said he hated T.O. because of what he did to his team and what he did to the organization. So the Hall of Fame, they moved the mark, okay? Because before, a character wasn't a part of being in the Hall of Fame. So I understand now. It's also a message to the young wide receivers, Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown. Check yourself, because now what you do off the field can be categorized as far as your campaign to get into the Hall of Fame.
But
also, wait a second.
His stuff was off the field they're not, because T.O. wasn't out getting in trouble.
Locker room.
But he was there
They said
doing his work.
They said,
listen, Donovan McNabb was a great quarterback. Not a Hall of Famer, but a great quarterback. He undermined Donovan McNabb. Pissed me all the way off.
Donovan McNabb even says he deserves to be in there.
I don't care.
And also, there were people that...
let me tell you, Donovan McNabb's on TV.
Yeah.
So that's a TV answer. That's a TV answer.
That was all. But that's all. You're talking about the undermining of Donovan McNabb. That was just a personal thing. Donovan wanted an apology.
It affected the team, the man's leadership and control.
Brian Dawkins said it took 2 years to get the team in the locker room back together after T.O. left.
Thank you.
Now, I know you respect Brian Dawkins.
I would totally respect Brian Dawkins, but I blame them for making it take that long.
Okay,
also.
It's not that your argument doesn't have validity. I do think it. Your argument's a very compelling one, that it's just not off-field stuff. It hurt the room. I just think T.O.'s greatness, it's close. I would dock him some, but I do think he really was so tremendously talented that when I dock it, he's still in.
That's what I believe about Randy Moss. I really do.
Well,
There's a difference between Randy and T.O. I'm going to personalize this in a way that I might get ridiculed for, but I'm just trying to keep it all the way real. Listen, people act like this locker room dynamic stuff doesn't matter and being a good teammate doesn't affect winning or losing. I live with the regret. I was not a great teammate in college. I did not prepare myself the way I should have. We could have won a championship. And so, again, I was a mediocre college player, led it for 2 years, started or whatever. But they come back. Ball State circled back to me years later, now that I'm on TV and got a little notoriety, and actually had someone suggest they put me in the Ball State Hall of Fame. And I said, are you kidding me? I'm not going to disrespect the guys that was on my team that gave their all to the team.
But T.O., with that argument, T.O. was profoundly gifted.
I get it, but he was profoundly divisive in a locker room and hurt some teams in a way that most players never do.
There are other players that are divisive in locker rooms that are good players that are in the Hall of Fame.
Who?
I play.
Name 'em.
There was a point in the 49ers.
Name 'em.
There was I'm about to name them. There was a point in the 49ers locker room where you were either Joe Montana's guy or you were Steve Young's guy.
You just said Joe Montana.
So now, but this is what I'm saying right now. There was a point to where you were his guy or you were Steve's guy. So, and that right there divides a locker room. But guys, but what happened?
It wasn't for character.
But it
was because of talent, and you know.
It was.
When are we going to send off the old guard?
Feelings, and what we're talking about with Donovan and T.O., that's personal feelings. Those guys didn't get along. There are a lot of players that don't get along.
Andy Reid got to 1 Super Bowl. T.O., even with a broken leg, was a remarkable player in that game. So if it's disrupted,
missed the 2 playoff games that they won, but
he was hurt.
Yeah, I know he missed them.
I mean,
they made it there without him.
Well,
I'm glad that character matters, and also you're going to see a reflection of this not only with the Hall of Fame. Watch the NFL Combine. They're getting ready to invite 500 players, but they got 4 or 5 players that have character issues off that are going to have to miss the Combine, and they are between 1 and 4th rounds as far as their grades. So this character thing is not going away.
Last point, we got to go. Last point I'm gonna make, and I'm sorry for personalized, I can get ridiculed. The year after, I didn't play my 5th year at Ball State. A less talented team won the MAC championship without me than they did with me. It matters. All right, welcome back. Chris Carter and Eric Davis are still with us. Let's return to the Super Bowl champs who got some Deflategate revenge on Sunday. But if you thought winning the Super Bowl would put the scandal to bed, think again. Tom Brady trolled Roger Goodell in a commercial that aired after the game, and New England defensive coordinator Matt Patricia was spotted in a T-shirt depicting Goodell as a clown. Colin, is it a bad look for the Patriots to keep trolling Goodell?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the reigning dynasty. Aren't they sort of above this? Let me get this straight. Let me get this straight. You want me to believe the NFL's got it in for the Patriots? That's what you want me to believe. I mean, it just looks so small. It's very Boston, very provincial. Everybody's against us. Just a crankiness that's just sort of embodies the city. But, I mean, the world's against me. I'm watching this thing here. I'm not buying it.
It's way too small, and I think it undermines a larger message they could be riding on. I went to Barstool Sports this morning, was looking at something. They had a video that they captured on the sideline of Chris Hogan, Amendola, and Edelman celebrating on the field after the Super Bowl, and they got in the camera, were yelling at their friends. Nobody believed in us. No one thought we were good enough.
Oh.
No one thought. No. But to me, that rings true, and that's the message they should be championing, is that, you know what, we were guys, the sum was greater than the individual parts. That's the message I think the Patriots should be rallying behind, not that we hated Goodell so much, that's what fueled us. That's so small and petty and silly. It's unbecoming a champion.
Well, I just think that even as a champion, you can be just as petty as a non-champion. And I think that New England, they do have talented players, but they're human beings. And to think that they wouldn't be affected by all this is nonsense. This is what I expect to happen. The New England coaches are just as petty as the other coaches around the league. Now, they can really gloat because they can use whatever motivation they want. They would have come up with something else. If it wasn't Deflategate, they were plenty motivated before that. That is us against the world attitude. It plays well there. But they have a dynasty. They are the team to beat. And that's the reality of it.
And Robert Kraft, for the record, if the owner...
He's the head of the petty.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's given the go-ahead.
That's what I was going to... Okay, you step off of Robert's plane wearing a Goodell clown T-shirt. That's petty. Yeah. From the highest level, because this is the thing. You just had the ultimate mic drop when you won the Super Bowl. You don't have to talk. You don't have to say anything. There's no more trash talking. There is no more. Of course, you have the mentality us against the world. That's all. That always reigns high and supreme within a locker room. But you ultimately want it all. You don't have to say anything.
Right.
They're bigger than this.
The
You
joke's
should be
on
better
everyone
than
else
this.
now.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at that. It's one thing if your players are on the sideline saying no one believed in us, because you got Hogan. He's one of the guys, a new guy. He's never won it. So he's like, oh, you didn't believe I could do this, and I just did it. I get that. But Patricia?
They're a national team playing to a local story. It's a local story. Nobody in the other 40
high schoolers, yeah.
The other 49 states, nobody's saying, man, they really got it out for those guys in silver who end up in the Super Bowl every year.
Matt Patricia probably wants to be an NFL head coach.
That's a bad look.
That's Rex Ryan 2.0 right there. That's Rex Ryan 2.0. That's what you would expect from a clown coach. And again, Roger Goodell is his boss. What NFL owner is sitting there saying, oh, yeah, this is my head coach is going to troll my boss, someone in charge of discipline?
Yeah, he's lucky he got Tom Brady, because the Atlanta Falcons would have clowned them. Tom Brady, if they hadn't eaten up 11 minutes of that clock in the second quarter.
Let me tell you, the number one place where you can hide incompetence, because that's incompetence right there, is in a successful organization. There's more incompetence in a successful organization, and everybody can hide behind Bill Belichick's genius and get away. That Matt Patricia clown show shouldn't be. If I was an NFL owner, I'd strike him off my list of potential head coaches.
What happened? Roger Goodell was doing his job. If you disagree with what Roger did with the suspension, okay.
It wasn't Roger's investigation. Someone did the investigation and brought a recommendation. This is what we found. This is what we think the punishment should be.
And also now understand that Kraft understands, the owner of this team understands the power that Roger has to put down these punishments. Everything that happened, and I still don't want to hear that Tom didn't know what was going on with his balls. Every quarterback knows what's going on with his balls. That's a different story.
I certainly do know mine.
But at the end of the day, there you go with that. And at the end of the day, the punishment was laid down. He's doing his job. This is no different than the way I viewed guys coming back at Charles Barkley for doing his job. Don't make it personal. If you want to talk about what Rodgers was doing on the field, but you're getting personal now with the clown suits and the clown shirts and all of that. That right there, to me, is ridiculous for an organization of this level.
It's
ridiculous.
The best dynasty, in my opinion, maybe ever. That's what we're left with? Shots on T-shirts.
I saw a few of the Pittsburgh Steelers walking around the Super Bowl, and Mel Blount would like an opportunity to cover any one of the receivers. Mr. Dynasty.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Thanks for listening, everybody. As you may have noticed, your boy, that's me, did a Facebook Live today defending LeBron James. Seriously, the media attacks on LeBron about him not wanting to compete and being too pushy and complaining and whiny, and now this trade rumor garbage started by the media. Listen, man, I had to defend LeBron. Listen, if you want to go watch it, it's on Facebook Live. It's on the Speak for Yourself page. And I do want to answer a question from someone who proposed this one on Facebook. Reginald Bernard, what is your take on Skip Bayless comparing Brady to Michael Jordan? Well, it just so happens, Reginald, I did this a couple weeks ago on The Big Lead. I said, listen, you look at the titles won by Brady. You look at the titles won by Jordan. The defining player of an era, it's Tom Brady. It's Michael Jordan. Also, it's much tougher to do in the NFL. Tom Brady did it in an era where Peyton Manning, who's a top 5 quarterback all time, was playing. Who did Michael Jordan have to contend with? No dynasties. No Spurs dynasty. No super teams. I've said this a million times. The watered-down NBA in the 90s helped Michael Jordan rise to the top. Great player. All-time great. Right now, he's 1 and LeBron's 1A. But I'm telling you, the Tom Brady-Michael Jordan comparison is totally on point, and I lean Tom Brady. Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.